Hi, I'm Mike, and welcome to Byte by Byte Mike Explains. Technology powers our everyday lives, but most of us never get to see what's happening behind the scenes. That's what this channel is all about, uncovering the hidden stories behind the apps, devices, and services we use every day. Today's question: what happens when you scan a QR code? What happens when you scan a QR code? You're sitting in a cafe. You just walked in, found a table by the window, and sat down with the particular satisfaction of someone who has earned a break. Maybe it's been a long morning. Maybe you just finished something difficult. Maybe you simply wanted somewhere warm to sit and think about nothing for a while. Either way, you're here now. The cafe smells good. There's music playing, just quietly enough that you can't quite make out the song. Someone nearby is typing very seriously on a laptop as if they are writing the most important email of their life. And you are hungry. Not dramatically hungry, just that low level hunger that reminds you it would be a good idea to eat something before it becomes a more urgent situation. So you look at the table, you're expecting a menu. A little laminated card, perhaps. Something with pictures. Something that says toasted sandwich on one side and slice of cake on the other, and lets you weigh up the two options like the serious adult you are. But there's no menu. There's just a little square picture, black and white blocks, sitting there quietly like a tiny crossword puzzle that already knows all its own answers. The waiter appears. You look up hopefully. The waiter points at the square. Just scan the QR code. Just scan it. As if that explains everything. As if you were born knowing how to do this. So you pick up your phone, open the camera, and point it at the little square. Your phone thinks for half a second. That brief pause where it seems to be deciding whether it feels like cooperating today. A small message appears at the top of the screen. You tap it, and suddenly you're on a website. The menu is right there. Sometimes it works exactly like that. Beautifully, instantly, without any drama. Sometimes it opens the wrong page. Sometimes it asks you to download an app, which feels like being asked to fill out a form before you're allowed to look at a menu. Sometimes a spinning circle just spins and spins, and you sit there, hungry, watching it, wondering quietly whether this is how things come apart. But when it works, and it usually does, something genuinely interesting has happened. You didn't type anything, you didn't search for anything, you just pointed your phone at a printed square on a cafe table and somehow it knew exactly where to go. How? What actually happened in that half second? Let's open the tiny square and find out. What a QR code actually is. Here's the simplest possible answer. A QR code is a printed note for your phone. That's the foundation of everything that follows. Write it on a mental sticky note and keep it somewhere visible. A printed note for your phone. Now, let's fill in the details. Imagine you wanted to tell someone to visit a particular page on the internet. You could say the address out loud. You could write it down in normal letters. You could send it as a message. All of those work fine. But what if you wanted to give that instruction directly to a phone's camera without any typing involved? A camera doesn't read letters the way eyes do. A camera looks at patterns of light and dark. So the solution was to take the message, a web address, a ticket number, a Wi-Fi password, whatever it might be, and convert it into a pattern of light and dark squares, not randomly arranged. A very specific pattern where each arrangement of black and white means something particular. That pattern is the QR code. Your camera looks at it, recognizes the pattern, decodes what it means, and turns it back into the original message. Message becomes pattern. Pattern gets printed. Camera reads the pattern. Pattern becomes message again. Simple in principle, surprisingly elegant in practice. Where it came from. QR codes were invented in Japan in 1994 by a company called Denso Wave, which was part of Toyota. They needed a better way to track car parts during manufacturing. Standard barcodes weren't keeping up. You've seen barcodes your whole life. That pattern of thin and thick black lines on the back of almost everything in a shop. When a cashier scans a box of cereal, the scanner isn't tasting the cereal, it's reading a pattern. That pattern encodes a number, and the number connects to a database that knows what the product is and what it costs. Barcodes are wonderful for that job. Fast, reliable, cheap to print, but they have a limitation. A barcode only runs in one direction, left to right. which means it can only hold a small amount of information. Think of it like a single shelf, useful for labeling a tin of soup, not enough for everything a factory label might need to say. In a busy manufacturing operation, you need labels that can carry more data, survive a bad angle, and still be read at speed. So the team at DensoWave built something better, a two-dimensional code. Instead of running in just one direction, it filled a square, columns and rows like a grid. More squares means more information, enough for a web address, a phone number, contact details, a ticket reference, a short message, a payment link. They called it quick response because the whole point was speed. It could be scanned fast, even on a moving production line. And then they made a decision that changed everything. They made the format open. Anyone could use the QR code format, free of charge, no license required, no fee to pay. That decision is a large part of why QR codes are everywhere today. Because no one had to pay to use them, they spread freely. From car factories to warehouses, from warehouses to shops, from shops to restaurants, from restaurants to museums, parking machines, concert halls, and the cafe table where you are sitting right now. For years, QR codes were mainly industrial. Then two things changed. Smartphones became common, and phone cameras became good enough to read QR codes without needing a dedicated app. Before that, you had to download a special QR reader, which was an extra step before the extra step. Once the regular camera app could do it, once it was just open camera, point, tap, the barrier disappeared completely, and QR codes went from a niche factory tool to something you'd find on a cafe table. How your phone reads it. When you point your camera at a QR code, the first thing your phone does is find the code in the image. Not just notice that something is there, but understand exactly where it starts and ends, which way it's oriented, and whether it's flat or at an angle. Most QR codes have 3 bold squares in 3 of the 4 corners. A thick border on the outside, a smaller square floating inside. These are called finder patterns. They are the most important part of the whole design. Your phone spots those 3 squares and uses them like handles. It measures the distances between them, works out the exact position and orientation of the code, and corrects for any tilt or angle. Even if you're holding your phone slightly sideways, even if the QR code is on a curved surface, like a bottle, even if the lighting isn't perfect, even if your hand is doing that small tremble it sometimes does before you've had coffee. Once the phone has found the 3 corners, it knows where the 4th corner is too. It can map the full boundary of the code. Now it can read what's inside. The interior is a grid of small black and white squares called modules. These are the data. Your phone reads them in a specific order, translating the pattern into characters, letters, numbers, symbols, punctuation, following a standard that every QR code in the world uses. Black means one thing, white means another. Together they encode the message the same way dots and dashes encode letters in Morse code, or the way ones and zeros underlie everything digital. That's also why a code printed anywhere in the world can be scanned by any phone anywhere else. Same format, understood everywhere. There's also something clever built into the design, error correction. Part of the data in a QR code is deliberately redundant. It contains enough extra information that the code can still be read correctly even if part of it is damaged, dirty, or covered up. That's why you sometimes see QR codes with a company logo printed right in the middle of them. The logo covers some of the data, but the error correction absorbs the loss and the code scans correctly anyway. It was designed for real-world conditions. Dirty labels, crumpled posters, someone who spilled something on the table. Life is messy, and the code was built knowing that. What happens after the scan? Once your phone has decoded the pattern, it has a string of text, usually a web address. Your phone recognizes what type of information it is and shows you a small prompt at the top of the screen. A little message that says, "Here's where this points. Do you want to go there?" And you tap. That tap matters more than it might seem. Your phone doesn't go there automatically. It asks first. Because a QR code is just a message, and a message can point anywhere. Your phone doesn't know in advance whether the address inside the code is the cafe menu you were expecting or something else entirely. So it shows you the destination and lets you decide. That 1-second habit, glancing at the address before tapping, is all the caution you need. If it looks like what you'd expect, Tap freely. If it looks strange, misspelled, or completely unrelated to where you are, you can simply not tap. Nothing has happened yet. Your phone asked a question, you chose not to answer. No drama, no panic. Most QR codes are completely ordinary. Menus, tickets, Wi-Fi passwords, payment pages, information panels, useful, boring, helpful little squares. But understanding that your phone is asking your permission rather than just going automatically means you're making a choice rather than following a reflex. And making choices rather than following reflexes is a good general policy with technology. What else fits inside? Web addresses are the most common thing, but the square can hold other types of messages too. Ticket references. When you buy a ticket for a concert, a train, a cinema, the confirmation often includes a QR code. When you arrive, someone scans it. But this code might not be pointing to a website at all. It might simply contain your booking reference number, a unique identifier that the system checks against its records. Is this valid? Has it been used? Is this the right event? Think of it like a coat check tag. The tag isn't your coat, it doesn't contain your coat, it just points to your coat. The QR code is the label. The checking happens in the system. Wi-Fi credentials, you visit somewhere new. There's a QR code on the wall or the welcome card. You scan it and your phone offers to join the Wi-Fi network. The code contained both the network name and the password in a format your phone recognizes directly. No reading out a password that sounds like someone dropped a keyboard down the stairs. No asking whether that was a capital letter or not. One scan. A tiny printed guest pass. Contact details. Some business cards include a QR code. Scan it and your phone offers to add a new contact. Name, number, email, company, all of it, ready to save. Instead of typing out details by hand while someone watches you, hopefully, you scan and done. Offline messages. A QR code doesn't have to point online at all. It can simply contain a short piece of text, readable with no internet connection, useful in places with poor signal, or on labels and notices where the information just needs to be there, reliably, no server required. Same square shape, many different kinds of notes inside, like envelopes. Two envelopes can look almost identical on the outside. One holds a birthday card, one holds a bill. Very different experience once you open them. Examples in everyday life. Let's walk through a few situations you've probably already been in now that you know what's actually happening. Back in the cafe, you sit down, no paper menu, just a QR code. You open the camera, point, and your phone spots the three-corner markers instantly. It reads the grid, finds a web address, and shows you the prompt. You tap. The menu loads. The whole thing took about 3 seconds. What happened was a web address that the cafe put into a QR code generator, probably months ago, was stored as a pattern in that printed square. Your phone decoded the pattern. Your phone offered to open it. You said yes. The QR code was the waiter handing your phone a note that said, "Menu is over here." And now you can return to the real question: sandwich or cake? Which, in fairness, requires a completely different kind of processing. The parking machine. It's cold outside. The machine has a screen that looks like it was designed during a particularly difficult afternoon. There's a QR code on the side. You scan it. Your phone opens a payment page. The QR code didn't handle the parking. It didn't register your car or count the time. It simply pointed your phone to where the process begins. Instead of "please visit this long web address, choose your city, choose your zone, enter this number, and try not to cry," the square gives your phone the starting point, particularly useful when you're standing outside in winter with gloves on while someone behind you is already waiting for your parking space and making their impatience quietly but clearly known. A museum. You're standing in front of an exhibit, a painting, a sculpture, a historical object. Next to it, a small label with a QR code. You scan it, it opens an audio guide, a video, a page with far more information than would fit on a physical label. Without the code, the label has a title and a date. With the code, it connects to the full story. The object stays physical. The extra information lives online. The code is a door between them. This is one of the genuinely good uses. The physical world stays physical. The digital extends it. The bigger idea, QR codes solve a very specific human problem: the gap between the physical world and the digital one. You're standing somewhere, you're holding something, you're looking at a sign, and somewhere online, there's more. More information, more functionality, more of whatever you need. How do you get from the physical thing in front of you to the digital thing that relates to it? You could type a web address, but typing is slow and error prone, especially on a small screen, especially when the address is long. You could search for it, but searching requires knowing what to search for. A QR code is a bridge that someone else built in advance. The person who made the menu, the poster, the ticket, they put the destination in. You just show up with a camera and a moment of attention. The barrier is as low as it can be, and that gap between several steps and one tap turns out to matter more than it might seem. Not because any individual step is particularly hard, but because friction adds up. Every extra step is a moment where something can go wrong, where the address is mistyped, where the search returns the wrong result, where the patience runs out. The QR code removes the steps. Point, tap, done. That's the whole appeal, not the technology itself, the reduction of friction. Technology at its best isn't impressive. It's invisible. It takes the boring part away quietly so you can get on with the part that matters. Closing. So let's come back to the cafe. You came in hungry, you found no paper menu, just a small square on the table, and now you know exactly what it is. A printed message, a shortcut, a note someone left for your phone to read. Inside the square is an address. Your camera found the corner markers. It read the grid, it decoded the pattern, it handed your phone the destination. Your phone asked if you wanted to go there. You tapped yes. The menu loaded. None of it was magic, just a well-designed system doing its job quietly in the background of your morning. That's what most technology actually is when you look closely enough. Not mysterious forces, not invisible intelligence, just carefully designed solutions to specific problems, which become invisible once they work well enough. The QR code solved the problem of the gap between a table and a website. The barcode solved the problem of labeling products at scale. The phone in your pocket solved about 40 different problems simultaneously. So gradually, you stop noticing them. Technology becomes infrastructure. And infrastructure, by definition, is the stuff you don't think about until it stops working. Understanding it doesn't make it less useful. It makes it less intimidating. And intimidation is probably the biggest barrier between people and the tools that are trying to help them. A QR code is not a secret door controlled by tiny robots. Although I would still absolutely watch that film. It's a little square note. Your phone is the reader. You are still the one deciding whether to walk through the door. Now, order something. The sandwich is good, so is the cake. You've earned it. Technology was always meant to work for you, not the other way around. Thanks for watching Byte by Byte Mike Explains. I hope you learned something new today and discovered a little of the technology hidden behind our everyday lives. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and let me know what tech mystery you'd like me to explain next. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and keep learning one byte at a time.